Hello and welcome to Celebrating Simple Life. I'm Kimberly and I've been planning parties and incredible events for the past 15 years. I'm passionate about connecting people, making gatherings purposeful, and making the most out of every moment. Join me as we learn together how to find joy, celebrate the simple things in life, use events to grow your business, entertain with purpose, and have a whole lot of fun along the way. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life. Today on the show, I'm so excited to chat with Daria Malin, owner of Boost Strategic Coaching and the author of Hands-On Marketing. Daria is a strategic advisor to business owners, professionals, mostly in the areas of business development, branding, and advertising. She is just a gem and brings clarity to the process of building a business, provides her clients with measurable steps to take their career to the next level. Daria motivates professionals through her interactive sessions to be energized and to be inspired to set goals and to achieve their next big goals. She has spent almost 20 years in the media advertising industry, which is how I initially met her. She holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree and is a graduate of the Wizard Academy Non-Traditional Business School in Austin, Texas. She has the ability to help you realize your superpower and how to fully monetize it. In her book, Hands-On Marketing, The Small Business Owner's Guide to Advertising and Branding, is the confused business owner's guide to advertising with purpose, offering unique insight into both online and traditional advertising options in order to be able to increase your advertising toolbox. She is so knowledgeable in her industry and so down to earth, and you are just going to love our conversation today. Hello, Daria. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Good. We are sitting in your patio office.
Yes, my favorite place.
Well, it might be my new favorite place too. This is great. Hear the hustle and bustle of the neighbors and the outdoors around us.
A little bit of construction going on adds to the ambiance.
It does. I'd like to think so. And we're just here all relaxed and chatting, not having to do that.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on as a guest today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you. I think that we could probably chat for many, many, many hours, and we're going to try to tailor this all into one episode.
Something concise.
Yeah, exactly. So I love what you do. I love how you put yourself out there, and you are the owner of Boost Strategic Coaching.
Yeah.
And you and I have known each other for a long time in different industry related things. And now as a coach, I am so excited to hear about how you got into business coaching and what makes you you. So tell us about Boost.
So I guess my history in business started back when I was working for our family Dairy Queen in high school. It was actually became my in-laws that I worked for. And when I was working there, I realized I was interested in the business side of that job.
More so than making the swirl on the vanilla
I was
cones.
really good at the swirl.
I bet you were.
But that wasn't what ended up interesting me. So
Right.
I was actually initially registered to go into arts and sciences, but this last summer I worked at that Dairy Queen before starting university. I realized I wanted to go into commerce. So I switched a bunch of my classes and started my commerce degree, ended up majoring in marketing, and went from there. After university, I was fortunate enough to get a job in advertising. And so I spent 16 years in media advertising, and I had a lot of fun there. Basically spent my days interviewing business owners because I was in the advertising department in mass media, and so I got to meet business owners, learn from them. Certainly when I first started selling advertising, they knew way more about business than I did. And so over all of those years, I got to hear about people from every industry and what they were challenged with and what worked and what didn't. And we got to try things and do campaigns and promotions. And so we had a lot of fun doing that. In that time, I had 3 maternity leaves. So leaving 3 times, I had to build my business back up every time I came back. So over those years with good internal training and all the extra resources that I sought out, I got to be sales became more and more fun the better I got at it. And so that's kind of how where I've come from, towards the end of my time in media advertising, I got the opportunity to do a little bit of teaching at Women Entrepreneurs, or WESC. And so teaching a few lunch and learns, branding workshops, things like that, that were things that I taught my clients one-on-one, a chance to start teaching it to groups. I realized that there were a lot of people that really started businesses and had no idea what to do next, how to put the next foot forward to get the word out, because marketing's made it's itself really complicated over the years. And so how do I let people know I exist? What do I tell them? How do I get the word out? So
well, and I think a lot of people find too that I'm sure people listening, if they are business owners themselves, own their own business or work for somebody else, when you work for yourself and you are your service, if you don't have a tangible product to sell, which is how I feel in my industry, at least with events, it almost feels that much more vulnerable and personal because you're trying to brand yourself, and you can either be really good at it or you always feel like should I be saying this?
Well, it's a self-promotion thing, and it feels yucky sometimes if you aren't comfortable with it, or you don't know how to do it right. I often will ask people when they're onboarding into my coaching roster, I'll say to them, if I gave you this business, but it was somebody else that owned it, would it be easier for you to go tell people about it? And they almost always say, absolutely.
Right.
If I was selling this on behalf of somebody else, I could absolutely tell people about it because I think it's amazing, whatever. But as soon as they feel like their business is the same as themselves,
right,
there's a discomfort around that, because you don't want to come off as bragging, or you don't want to sell. You don't want to sound like you're selling.
We've all had the experience in a negative way with somebody being a salesy person to us. And I think that, at least for me, is always my worst fear, where like I know what I don't want to be, but it's hard maybe to know what I do want to be. Yeah.
And so if we can change our mindset to, you started this business or you're in this profession because you actually can solve a problem for somebody,
right,
it's incumbent on you to let them know you can be there for them to solve their problem. Right. People go, oh, it doesn't sound salesy if you think of it like that.
Yeah. Who
are you trying to serve? And what are you trying to serve them with? And you need to let them know that. That's really what it comes down to. So that all, like I said, I started working a little bit with teaching those little branding workshops and lunch and learns and things. And so as I got a chance to talk to more people who were just starting their businesses, or a couple years in, and things just weren't growing where they thought they were, that's where the seeds started to plant, I think, for me, where I could support you in more ways than just selling media advertising to you. Like, I know the other steps you need to take. I had the unique opportunity to learn sales, but I happened to sell advertising. So I got to learn the advertising side and the direct selling side at the same time. And so I guess that's where everything kind of came from. And ultimately it became a clear choice to move into business coaching, because that's how I could see myself serving the business community the best.
Like as a whole versus one piece.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense. So have you found, obviously, starting a business and going out on your own, there's always risks involved to it, and there's always the good, the bad, and the ugly of things to try. Because I know for myself, and what I hear a lot of women saying to me as they're starting businesses is, it just is almost one of those processes where you have this idea in your head as to what it's going to be like. And then as it evolves and grows, you slowly start evolving and growing yourself and realizing that maybe what I thought this was going to be like at the beginning has changed. So have you found that for yourself? Did you have a direction when you first started business coaching now that you have over the years realized that it's evolved into different aspects that you enjoy more or differently than from the beginning?
I think what has evolved the most is who I'm working with, the types of clients that I'm working with. And I think that the biggest learning and mistakes I made early on is not being as, I don't want to say selective, but careful in who I worked with.
Just like taking it on because it was a client.
Because it was a client. And even though you know better when you're first starting out, you do that. And also I was learning who the right clients were.
You have to have some failed.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think where the fails came in were mostly that I sometimes cared more that the client did the work than they cared themselves to do the work. So they like the idea of having a plan and having guidance and support to follow the plan, but I cared more than them if they succeeded because they didn't do the work in between.
And that was probably frustrating for you
It's
to watch
frustrating
this
for
happen.
me,
Yeah.
but again, like it's not my business, it's your business. But if you're not going to actually do the work between our sessions, I can't make this happen for you.
Right.
And so I think that was where it took me a while. And sometimes what it ended up being is that they were looking more for a life coach, where it was more of an emotional support and guidance in that way. A business coach is very different than a life coach. A business coach is the mechanic of a business model. So these are the tools that you can apply to your business to grow to be where you want to be. This is how you use them. I'm going to help you apply them properly to your business. So I think me being more clear on that, and then being more clear with who was a good fit for what I offer was a learning. And so definitely my coaching roster has evolved over the years, where I know who's a fit earlier on, and we can either fire a client if we have to, or just not take one on because you're actually not looking for what I do. Yeah.
And you start trusting yourself more, right? Of like knowing what is right and what isn't right, instead of just looking at the bottom line and being like, oh, this would be nice to have another client on the list. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, do you feel that as a business coach that it's probably almost a bit of a job hazard to feel like you have to be like really good at everything?
Oh man, when I first started, I was like, what if they have questions I don't have answers for? You know what I mean? And so, my job is to always keep up to date on all the marketing and advertising trends and what's happening and the logistics behind that. But ultimately, the strategy is, or the fundamentals are always the same.
Right.
There are certain fundamentals that will help you to gain new clients. So even if the tactics change over time, the strategies and the fundamental pieces are always the same.
Right.
And so I can always teach clients that. Having said that, I've heard coaches say, you only need to know more than the person that you're coaching.
Right.
You don't have to know everything. You need to know more than they do about the topic that they're looking for help on.
Right.
And so I had to start giving myself more credit for the years I spent in sales, the years I spent in advertising, to say, no, I know I grew this business. Like I after 3 mat leaves plus when I started, like I basically grew a business 4 times before I started my own business. And so you almost forget how much you knew. And so the first number of coaching sessions, there was nervousness around it. It was like, well, what if they have questions I don't have answers for? But now I feel better because we don't have to have all the answers the moment we're talking. We figure them out together.
Right.
But I do know more than I gave myself
Well, and
credit
that's
for.
what makes you just like a real person to them too, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody feels good about being in a personal or business relationship with somebody who's like, I know everything and you know nothing, right?
Totally,
Yeah.
Totally. And you know what? And if there's certain areas of business that they should get support from somebody outside of me, part of why I keep a really strong network is so that I know who to send them to.
Right.
If there's a certain area of business that are like HR, for example, I'm not an HR specialist. If they need actual HR help, I know who I can send them to. For example. Yeah.
Totally. So what would you say to somebody who would initially reach out to you? So if a listener is listening to this and thinking, oh man, like I really thought my business was going to be in a different place right now. Maybe maybe I'm still dreaming of the business and I don't even know what it is yet. Or maybe I'm 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years in and still just feel this sense of either not direction or I don't really know where to go, or I thought I'd be making more money by now, or be more connected, or whatever the case. Like, what am I doing wrong? That's usually what we ask ourselves, right? Sure. What am I not doing?
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that reaches out to you and just is like, I'm throwing my hands up of this. I just don't know what to do?
So I would say that I've got 2 pieces to that, and they're related to each other. So first of all, I would tell people that they need to have usually more clarity in what they're doing and what they're offering the market. Often when you ask somebody, what do you do? They can't even explain it well.
That's true.
Yeah. And so they often lose their audience right there because clarity is not present in their own minds and the way they explain themselves. So clarity in what you do, more importantly, or just as importantly, clarity in who your markets should be. Often as business owners, we want to, or professionals, we say we would take any type of client.
Right.
When you ask somebody, who do you work with? Most people will say, I could work with anybody. that gives that it that offers a muddled message to the market.
Right.
And so nobody can place you. They don't understand if you'd be good for them, good for their colleague, good for one of their champions.
They can't even refer you if they wanted to.
They can't even refer you if they wanted to. Because if you're not clear on who your markets should be, then the market isn't clear on who you should be working with or who they should send your way. And so clarity would be that step one is what is it that you really solve for people? Not just what do you sell, what problem does that solve?
So is that the first step that you go in with a client when somebody calls Boost Strategic Coaching and they say, help me. They don't even maybe even know what they're asking, right? They don't even know what it is that they want to get out of it. They just know that they need help and they aren't really sure what goes into it. So would that be the kind of, what would you do first then? Help them gain clarity by doing what?
So yes, so we onboard with an intake session that includes a form they fill out that's a few pages that helps them get clarity for themselves on where we are right now.
Right.
What are you struggling with? What do you want your business to be? What is it right now? Where do you want to go? Sometimes the answers to a lot of those questions are I don't know.
Right.
And that's fine. Then we do an intake session where I get clarity on the things that I have more questions on after reading the intake form. But generally they've been throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks with marketing. Things aren't growing as fast as they want it to. They have discomfort around self-promotion, all those different things. And I work with a lot of professionals too. So people who are in a professional setting with a business development piece to it. And a lot of them traditionally have never had to sell. So, finance or like lawyers, architects, engineers, those guys sometimes are in a position where they need to find new clients and they don't necessarily have the tools in their toolbox to do that. That's just not what you learn in school as an architect. You don't learn those skills, but they're just tools you can add to the work you're already doing. So clarity. So I find out where they're at right now. And then generally the first thing we talk about is who are your markets? And if they're being too broad, then we generally will narrow them down to a few key markets, because when it's really hard to develop really good messaging that's going to be impactful until you first figure out who that messaging is for. Right. So, for example, I always use this story when I was writing my book. It's a marketing book. I knew marketing, but I'm not a writer. That's not my background. So when I was looking for an editor, I was reading profiles of different editors online, and there were a bunch of editors that their profiles were very general. It was, I can do nonfiction, I can do fiction, I edit, I do illustrations for children's books. That didn't give me a ton of confidence that they were right for me. So when I found the person I ultimately hired, it was because she had decided I am one of her markets as a nonfiction business book writer, and she wrote her messaging to me. So her profile said something like, I edit nonfiction business books so that they are as easy to implement for the reader as possible.
Interesting. That's a great example.
Well, it was like the angels, heaven opened up and the light shone on her profile. I'm like, she is my girl, because I felt like I needed somebody who could take my writing and make it change from looking like I wrote it in crayon to something that professionals could read and implement.
A portrait in a museum.
Exactly. So, because I had the content in my head, but was I being clear in my writing style about what I was trying to teach? So I had to wait longer for her and I had to pay more for her, but it didn't matter because her message was clear that I'm one of her markets, and she is an expert at doing what I need her to do. She may have had other markets too, but that particular profile on that particular website was directed at me. And so when we narrow down our markets, we can be more clear on the messaging to the market of what problem I can solve for you. You as that specific person in that specific target market.
So thinking then about the person listening to this right now who's like, okay, Daria, yes, I get it. I need to find clarity in my market. I need to figure that out. I'm aware that I maybe am being a bit confusing to the people around me, but I'm so busy trying to manage the few clients that I do have and have a life and maybe raise a family and this and this and this and this. And where am I supposed to find money to invest into a coach who maybe isn't going to understand me, or all the things you tell yourself as to why you shouldn't invest in yourself. You give yourself 100 reasons, right? What do you say to the person who feels like, I just don't think I have the money to invest in my business?
So I can answer that based on how I decided to work with a coach in the first place. I needed to know that the time I was spending away from my family working on my business was being spent in the right way. I needed to know that I had a plan that would take me to where I needed the business to go. And I felt that I would spend the money on my coach before I could afford it, because that would give me much more confidence that I would eventually be making way more than what the coaching fees cost me.
So you had to believe in it, almost forced you to believe in yourself and project that you were going to be successful.
But if I didn't spend the money on my coach, I had less confidence that the model I was building was going to get me where I needed to go, because I have never built a coaching practice before. Right. So the specific steps that I needed to take on my own, I had quit my very successful career in marketing for a company,
which gave
that
you
had a safety net,
consistent paycheck.
Totally.
You knew that you were going to work these hours. And
so I kind of felt like having my coach replace that safety net to some extent, almost the hand holding and the reassurance that, you know, he'd built businesses before.
Right.
If I follow what he's teaching me, I should follow suit.
There's no reason why this should fail.
I'm giving myself the best chance of success by having somebody who knows more than I do about building a business right now.
Right.
And so I guess that's where my clients they'll look at it as, how many more clients this month would you need to gain to pay the coaching fees? It's usually less than one new client should pay the coaching fees. If eventually you're not making more than the coaching fees, we should not be working together.
Right.
Something's wrong.
Yes.
Right? Like either the work isn't being done, or it's not a fit for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, like I felt like when I was trying to justify investing in coaching, it was, I only need to gain 1 or 2 new clients to pay for this coaching, and if I don't know what to do, then there's less of a chance that I'll even succeed, kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I like that. The one analogy that I've used, and people that I've worked with in the event industry over the years, is I think that there's always a bit of we've talked about this before too, there's always a bit of when you are your own business, and the business that you are in, such as coaching or event planning, just to use our careers as examples, there's like a bit of a confusion around it sometimes, because there isn't a tangible product at the end of it. I mean, for you have a book. That's a tangible product that somebody can go out and buy.
Yeah.
Jewelry company has actual items that someone can go out and buy. And so it's very cut and dry about what is and isn't available from them. But to come in at it as a consultant style role, always there's this like vague feeling where people around are like, I have no idea what it is that you do. And that has been like one of the biggest frustrations of my entire career, is because it makes me feel that I'm not doing a good job then of actually like promoting what my message is. And I like what you said about keeping it very specific and niche, and not trying to be everything to everyone.
For sure. And so, I mean, you asked me what we do when we start working together. Usually it's narrow down your markets, niche markets, and then it's develop messaging that will compel them. And then it's memorize those messages.
Right.
And it's not a speech, but it's a what's going to be the story? Like, your brand is just the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. What do you want that story to be? Are you going to direct and develop it by repeating the same couple sentences over and over again to those niche markets? Or are you going to let the market decide what you are? So all of us are marketers. Our job as marketers is to decide what the story is going to be. Obviously follow it through with the good work.
Right.
You can't just say you're going to be something and then suck at it.
Right.
And then hope
the message will go down the drain very quickly.
Totally.
Yeah.
But if you can develop a clear message, and I always have my clients memorize a couple sentences that shouldn't sound like a speech. Once you've memorized them and they make sense to you, they should sound natural. But don't deviate from that, so that then other people can repeat those on your behalf when the opportunity arises, because they've spoken to somebody in one of your markets. And then once you have those dialed in, then people can start to place you, and they can understand what it is you do, and they can understand when makes sense to work with you.
Right.
You know, and building that confidence.
Yeah.
In
I love that.
you. Yeah.
That's really great. So what would you say in your coaching practice is something that makes you unique in the industry? Because I know that there's been, I've noticed this in my industry as well. When I got into event planning 15 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of us, at least in the city that I lived in and the community that I was in. It was a bit of a unique career. It wasn't something that everybody was doing. And it usually made people turn heads to be like, oh, like they would go to events and recognize what an event was, but the act that somebody had actually spent time coordinating it and then it didn't just happen by magic was like a new concept.
For sure, yeah.
And in this too, like it has been over the last maybe like 15, 10, even in the last 5 years where there's like real, because to be honest, event planning too, coaching, event planning, anyone can get into it. It's no big deal.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow, you want to be a coach? You want to be an event planner?
Yeah.
There's certain industries, you just go do that and be that as it may. There's also a lot of people that are really not great in those industries, which is challenging when you feel like you have been successful in an industry to see it be so easy to get into and not maybe giving the name of your industry a good one.
For sure.
So how do you see yourself being in your niche and unique in your coaching market?
Right. Well, I think that I've practiced what I preach as far as I've chosen specific niche markets that I am best suited for or that I'm excited to work with. And so my three are seasoned sales professionals who want to put a finer point on their sales skills, professionals who have not previously been required to sell. So like I mentioned, those, you know, the architects, those guys,
right,
who just need a set of tools to add to all the other technical things that they do really well. And then independent business owners, I always say, like, my women with business superpowers who just haven't fully monetized them. So that would be like, you know, in your industry, or, you know, you're kind of the product, there's nothing tangible, but you know you can really do some good things for some people. And so I've been really specific with my niche markets and my messaging. And so I think that, I guess the difference between me and other coaches is that my expertise is in sales and advertising. Those are the things that I can speak to because I've spent 20 years doing them, and I know how to build business using those two things. Those are the two halves of business, of growing your business. And so that often will complement when you see other coaches who are more on the life coach side, where they're more helping you with either motivation or working through challenges that are stopping you from succeeding, right? That's a compliment. Same with leadership coaching. Often, if you're in a management position, there are certain tools that you will need as a manager to lead people. That's where leadership coaches come in. I specifically work with growing business by getting more clients. And so the conversations are around directly approaching prospects, building champions, building your network, and making the proper advertising decisions to back up the great stuff you're doing in your market. So what should your presence be online? What, if anything, should you be doing on social media? Should you be buying media advertising? How do all of those things work together to back up the story you're telling to your direct market?
I like that. So I like that you use the word like superpower in your marketing and your branding, and helping people realize that sometimes what you feel you're really good at, or what a gift is of yours, that you aren't actually even putting it out there to people to let them know that this is something you're good at. So do you feel that when you are meeting with a new client, that is a gift of yours to be able to help draw out what that superpower is, if there's maybe confusion in a person's even self-awareness of what it is that they all have to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what excites me about a project or working with somebody is being able to identify what that superpower is, and almost being like the sculpture of it, meaning getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter, that's confusing the market, or that they're doing that's a waste of that's not the best use of their time.
Simplifying their skills.
And often it's, well, I do this thing, but I could work with any kind of business. I could, say you're a really good writer, and you could write for universities, you could write for banks, you could write for business owners for their website, you could write for anybody. Absolutely, you could write for anybody. Who are you going to target? And you need to pick some target audiences so that you have direction.
Right.
So you know what direction to go. You start to know who you should be talking to, develop messaging that will be compelling to that group. Again, not because you couldn't do it for, like, I could work with other types. I could work with retailers.
The world could be your client.
Absolutely.
Roster.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't give you any clarity when you don't have an unlimited marketing budget or time to go to every type of networking event and conference in the world.
Right.
For your own sanity, you need to narrow down your markets so that you can decide where to spend your time and money.
Totally.
To reach those people.
Well, and I find myself exactly in that same place in the industry that I'm in, because I could plan events from morning till night for the entire rest of my life and be running around like a crazy person.
Yes.
But that wouldn't necessarily make me feel passionate about what it is that I'm doing. And I heard this quote a little while back that was talking about how, and I think people like you and I who do get really excited and passionate about what we do, it is sometimes hard to be like, okay, even though this is really good, I do not need this to be part of my life right now. It's a great thing. But the quote was something about how you don't need to know what you are all really good at. You're really good at a lot of things. Most people are really good at a lot of different things. It's narrowing down what you are exceptional at. And I loved that, because that helps streamline it for me in my own life, work and personal, really.
What are you exceptional at, and what do you want to spend your time doing?
Right.
When you wake up in the morning, like, even when you're choosing your markets, even if you see a market that could be perfect for you, if you would hate working with those types of people, don't make them one of your markets.
Right. It doesn't mean you're not good at it. You probably would be really great at it.
But you have to be excited about working with them too. Yeah.
That's really good advice. Well, I love your enthusiasm towards this. And I feel like one of the things that I always like to finish each episode off with is asking questions that maybe lead a little more into like personal life a little bit, just to get to know who Daria is.
That's good.
And so for you, some of these things are things we probably addressed already, but for you, what is like one thing that you do in the morning that sets your tone for the day ahead?
Well, honestly, what gets me out of bed is looking forward to my peanut butter and jam on toast with coffee. That I'm excited about it in the morning. So.
I love that you're not like, I'm not allowing myself to eat this, but this is my
I love
routine.
Food a lot, and I'm so excited about it's gluten-free bread, if you want to know, but it's still lots of peanut butter and jam and coffee. So, and then with that, my morning, I have discovered the Mel Robbins 5-second journal. And my girlfriend Carla pointed me to Mel Robbins, and I just appreciate what she teaches. It's all about motivation is garbage, she says. It's all about making decisions. I'm not going to explain it because I will do a terrible job of it.
Well, it's a whole nother episode.
But I always found, and you probably feel the same way, sometimes your to-do list is so big, and then at the end of the day or week, you just feel defeated because you feel like you didn't get anything done. Her 5-second journal, her 5-second rule is basically, if you're having trouble getting up to do something, count down backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, as if you're a rocket ship taking off, and somehow in your brain it makes you do it. It's you're more likely to do it.
That's like motivating, just the countdown.
So if you look up Mel Robbins 5-second rule on YouTube, it's a really good thing to watch. She's got there's a good one with her talking about it on an interview. But the 5-second journal, it's just with that same idea, but it helps me to plan my day, put it into perspective, and then only put as much in there as I can actually handle, or that is realistic, I guess. Right. So that at the end of the day, I'm finding everything's checked off because I put a realistic number of things in there. So on one page is just how are you feeling today, energy level, and I don't usually get into that kind of thing. It's not usually I don't know how to explain why it's not my thing, but I usually don't analyze my energy level or my
you just let it be what it's going to be.
But this one's it's suiting me. So you fill out what's your one major project today, why is this important to you, what's one thing that will add or make you more energized today, what are you grateful for, other thoughts. So that's on the left page, so that takes 2 minutes. And then on the right page, it's a timetable, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 all day. You fill in, so I fill in my appointments for the day. And then in between the appointments, I fill in what I'm going to get done in between, making sure that one main task is there. And when you have to fill it in that way, you can't put 50 items on there because it looks ridiculous. You know you're never going to get it done.
It's impossible. The visual is impossible already.
Yeah. So just having the visual of, instead of my calendar on my computer and phone separate from my to-do list, somehow writing out that day of events and then plotting in the stuff between what I'm going to get done it just has changed my days, because then at the end of the day, I had laid out what's realistic and I got those done.
Right.
And then you have this feeling of satisfaction
totally.
Instead of, oh man, I failed again at getting
That's right. And
done.
you did a whole bunch of things and then you're like, did I just literally waste my entire day? I know I didn't, but how does this happen?
Yeah.
Oh, I
mean, there's lots of books and things talking about the one thing so all that's in there because you have to write out what's your most important project for the day. So as long as some days when I do write down too much, as long as I got that one thing done, then you still feel accomplished. Yes, totally. Yeah.
Oh, so I love that.
That's
been
my morning thing for about half a year now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And when you can feel like you're in a rhythm of it, then you feel like that's working for you. That's great.
Yeah.
So what is something when I know you have a home office similar to me. So sometimes you aren't always out and about, but when you are going out on appointments and meetings and having the days out of the home office, what do you definitely have in your purse?
Just lip balm and tissue and a bottle
usual.
of water.
Yeah, just usual. Just like old lady purse.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, not like exciting. A PB&J to go.
No, no. Although back when I was having my babies, which was a number of years ago now, but there was lots of food in my purse.
Yeah, always a lot of. You know what? I sometimes keep a bag of trail mix in my purse because sometimes if I am out and about and happen to be longer than I think I'm going to be, I get a little hangry.
Yeah,
and then I'm in my car and I'm road raging for no reason, but it's because I just need a few handfuls of trail mix.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there one thing or a few things that you find yourself doing? I know there's been tons of conversation in the last little while, at least I feel, on social media and different things that is showing more about the importance of self-care and mental health. And it just seems to be more of a conversation that people are willing to have publicly. And is there things that you do, big or small, to help your self-care to not feel like you're getting to like a frazzled burnout place at the end of the day or week?
Yes. I think I've always had that feeling of if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of anybody else.
Like put on your own like
face mask on the airplane.
First.
Yeah. I've always felt that. And I just seeing some people who have just stressed themselves out until they have chronic health issues.
Right.
I think I've always been conscious of that. For me, twice a week Pilates for sure. I go to Lead and they're amazing, and that's gotten me through chronic back pain and all sorts of stuff. So Pilates twice a week, and we have family movie night on Fridays with popcorn and my glass of red wine that I look forward to all week, and that my kids do not let us miss that unless something major is going on.
It's got to be catastrophic.
And even if it's something is major going on, we have to then reschedule it. We have to find time.
It has to fit in before the next week.
Yeah. So that to me is just, that's the family, and that's being in my home, which is my favorite place. And then just having that little moment. So those two things. And I think also we've always kept one thing of our own that's not just about the kids. Like, of course, we're driving them to activities and running them around all the time. But we've always kept our own thing. So like, I'm involved in musical theater, and over the years we used to teach ballroom dancing, and
I love that.
In the summer we are very serious about our beer league beach volleyball team. I only would do one of those at a time. Like, I'm outnumbered.
I'm only one human.
And we're outnumbered by our children.
That's right.
But having one thing that I'm excited about that's not work or home related that I can look forward to, connect with the friends that are involved in that activity. Those would all be things.
And it just uses a different part of the brain.
It does.
Hey?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I think it's so easy I think self-care can mean so many different things to different people. And I think so many people think of it as being like, oh, I have to get to the spa, but I can't afford to go to the spa, or all of those things. And it can be as simple as a bubble bath or like something. But I like that yours involves a hobby and a passion that you haven't let go just because life gets fuller and busier as we get older.
For sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if you could leave our listeners today with like one piece of advice or something tangible that I always like these like hands-on, like what can I actually do tomorrow to help improve my state of being or life instead of just thinking, oh man, there's nothing I can do. This just is what it is. And that's just all I can do about it. What would you say in your expertise that somebody could do tomorrow to help make their life better?
Yeah, well, I guess two things. Apparently, I like to give you two things.
Always
I have a lot
two.
to
Know
say.
what? Yeah, that's how valuable your resources are. Not just one, but two people.
You're right. I just like to talk. Yeah. That might be it,
well,
too.
you and me both, so we're in good company.
So one is don't feel like you have to do it all on your own. Business is isolating sometimes, and so have somebody. It can't be a spouse, it can't be somebody who's so close to you that they can't have an objective view on things. It can be a friend as long as they understand business or being in business. I mean, there's mentorships, there's coaches, there's just don't feel like you have to do it alone. I've always found it, like when I was in advertising, I had managers who I could go to, and there's lots of support. And then I will always have my own business coach or mentor or advisor outside of my own brain, because I don't want to be in it alone.
We don't always tell ourselves the truth either, right?
Absolutely. You need somebody from the outside to say to you, that's not going to work. That sounds terrible. Or you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Totally.
You've
both
got
ways.
this both ways. So that, and then, but tangible around business development and marketing, look closely at your markets. I always have my clients choose 3 niche markets to be focusing on. If you put all your eggs in one basket, you might find that market, for whatever reason, just isn't picking up what you're throwing down, and then you've invested time and energy, and it's just not going to work, even if you think it should.
Right.
Any more than 3 niche markets is hard to
that gets
manage.
too broad. Yeah.
But if you pick 3 niche markets, start with that. Then step 2, what did those each need to hear from you? Because sometimes, like even event planning, people might hire you to, and I know it's not it's event coordinating, so there's a lot more behind that than most of us understand. But one group might be, they just don't have the time, but they trust you to do it all. So your messaging to them might be, tell me what it is and when it is, I will take care of the rest. But the next, or a different niche might be more, they need hand-holding, and they're a nonprofit who doesn't have a big budget, and they want to do more of the work, but have you make sure they're on the right track.
Totally.
They might have to hear from you, I will walk with you every step of the way to ensure we put on a great event together. So even though you're selling them the same thing, they need to hear different messaging from you to understand that you're the right fit for them, if that makes sense.
I like that.
Yeah.
So lessons learned today, don't have to do it all alone, and pick 3 niche markets that
develop messaging for each one of them separately.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. I'm going to do that for myself as well. Thanks for the tips.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if somebody is wanting to follow you on Instagram or online, where do they find Boost Strategic Coaching and Daria?
Yes, so my website is boostcoaching.ca, but you can also find me on Instagram and on Facebook, and my name, Daria Malin, on LinkedIn as well.
And I will tag this all in the show notes so that you can find her. And thank you for being on here today.
Thank you for having me.
This show would not be possible without you, my incredible listeners. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to Celebrating Simple Life wherever you listen to podcasts. If you really want to make my day, leave a review. Each week, I will pick one review that will be read on the show, and the person who left that review will receive a special gift from me. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life.